Welcome to the Church Answers podcast. My name is Thom Rainer. This podcast is sponsored by Cheney & Associates. They are the accounting firm for the church. They're serving over 1,100 churches. I refer every church leader that I can to Cheney & Associates to do your accounting and bookkeeping. Look, don't try to handle that all on the inside. Get someone who knows churches. They deal exclusively with churches. They've been doing it for a long time. Steve Cheney, my friend, is just a great guy, and he's got a great team in California, but they can work with the church anywhere. They're in the cloud. It's all digital now. So check out Cheney & Associates. We're so grateful for their sponsorship. All right, just a reminder, in case you did not listen to the previous podcast, which is part 1 of Lessons from Church Autopsies, we are dealing with church autopsies, which basically means we found out why churches died. Just like a human autopsy determines the cause of death, we attempted to determine the causes, never singular, of death in congregations in the United States. That's why we call them autopsies. We interviewed members and pastors and staff who were once a part of these churches that were alive but now have deceased. And we're trying to get some lessons from them. I wrote a book on it a few years ago called Autopsy of a Deceased Church. The book is still very popular. I'm grateful for that. And so people say, hey, I want more. I want more. I could write a book, but I'm just trying to put it in a way that you can consume it pretty quickly in these bite-sized nuggets of the Church Answers podcast. Lesson we're going to look at this time is churches that close their doors by the failure to deal with toxins. Okay, what is a toxin? I am not suggesting that the church had some type of gaseous or liquid poison in there that they decided not to get rid of, and so it inadvertently fumigated everybody to death. No, not going there. Not going there. That's not what I mean. I'm referring to toxins as individual members or maybe a small group of members who by their very actions and their words on a consistent basis are tearing up the unity of the church. And the church may not be confronting them. They may not be even thinking about church discipline. Maybe you don't have the evidence, if you will, to do church discipline, but you just simply know that these people are divisive, that their very presence undermines churches. And frankly, I've done a lot of consulting, our team has, with a lot of churches with toxins. And if not dealt with, a toxin can take the church down. Now, here's what usually happens to a toxin, especially if that person, he or she, has a group of people supporting them. They usually leave the church right before the church closes. And so they go into another church, and you know what they do? They do the same thing. I know one small group of toxic members who helped take down 3 churches in a row. Let me correct myself. Who attempted to take down 3 churches in a row. One of them survived and now is thriving because they did not yield to the toxins. Never was a matter of church discipline, but it was a matter of the pastor and other key leaders standing up to these toxic leaders. Okay, what do we need to know about toxic leaders? Okay, Thom, you say the failure to deal with them was causative in many churches that died. This was not one of the ubiquitous factors like holding on to things or failure to acknowledge reality of what's going on. This is one that we would see in probably about 1 out of 3, maybe 1 out of 4 churches that closed. It was frequent enough that we wanted to mention it, but not so frequent that we would say it's a consistent factor in all churches. But it's there. And when you do not deal with toxins, basically, if you're looking at this from the metaphorical point of view, not dealing with the toxin means the poison remains and ultimately the poison kills. So what are some of the things we need to know about these toxins? One thing you need to know is that toxins aren't the same thing as critics. Every church leader has his or her critics. That's just the way it is. You can't get around that. Every leader has critics. I mean, it doesn't matter what role I've been in, I've always had critics. Some of them are the same ones that tend to follow me around. And I wonder, why are you doing that? If you didn't like me 4 organizations ago, why don't you go on? Leave me alone. But that's the reality of leadership. Critics are nitpickers. They're constantly whining or pointing out things that aren't right. But ultimately, most critics really love the church. And when you get down to the basic of it, they think that they are doing what they should do. And some of them are. I mean, let's be fair. Some critics need to criticize. Some critics of me are warranted in criticizing me. Always have been. Not all of you, but some of you. It has been warranted. So toxins are people who are set out to undermine the church, particularly by undermining the leadership of the church continuously. It is not just complaining about one thing. It is not just focusing on one error. It is continuously trying to undermine the church, specifically by undermining the leadership. As some of you are listening to it, you are understanding that you might be in a church that has some toxins. It's very possible. I've been in one church that had a toxin, and I quite frankly outlasted him and stood up to him. I'm not saying I'm the hero of the story, but that's just the one church that I did. But he went somewhere else and destroyed two other churches, or he and his small following did. So I'm not really the hero if he still, I don't know what else I could have done, but boy, that's another story. I don't need to get on too personal on this. So what should church leaders do? One of the things that you need to do, first of all, is to form a guiding coalition. What is a guiding coalition? It's a group of influential, godly leaders in the church who's got your back. Maybe 3 people, maybe 4 people. It may be the elders as a formally recognized group. In some of you Methodist churches, it may be one of your committees, like your administrative committee. It might be deacons in some churches, or it may be just informal authority that some of these people have. You know who they are. That guiding coalition should help you to deal with the toxin. If you, the pastor listening to this, or key church leaders, it is not your responsibility to deal with the toxin by yourself. You need someone by your side. And to continue the metaphor, you need someone that's got your back. You need someone that when the toxin begins to speak, more than one of you are listening. You don't meet with toxins alone. I wrote a book, just released it, and I didn't even mean to mention it in this one, but it's called "Where Have All the Church Members Gone?" It's kind of in the spirit of the Lencioni books, Patrick Lencioni books, small fable book, and this is a book about a church leader named Oliver who had a toxin named Ken. I'm not going to tell you any more of the book, but it's fascinating because what I did was basically put together stories from churches with whom I've worked. And though the characters are not real, they're based upon real characters. You know, I was just telling you about my toxin. Well, you look at Ken and you're going to learn who my toxin was, not by name, but you'll learn at least a lot of characteristics about him. Form a guiding coalition. And even before you do that, or maybe when you do that, understand the power of prayer. Don't let go of that. If you're handling a toxin in your own strength and your own power, man, I'll simply say this: it is likely that he is being used of darkness, that she is being influenced by something that is otherworldly, the dark side. That sounds too Trekkie of Star Wars, whichever one that is. But I'm talking about the demonic realm. It's a possibility that is spiritual warfare. So understand you have to deal with this through supernatural warfare yourself, which is prayer. And you need to be praying about this, and your guiding coalition can pray with you. If you have a prayer ministry that's not a gossip ministry, they can be a part of it as well. And then just this final note about toxic churches or toxic people. If that person is there, kicking the can is never a solution. What is kicking the can? It's a metaphor by putting off something. You're just going to kick the can, and you know what's going to happen if you're walking forward? You're going to see the can again. Until you get rid of that can, it's not going to go away. It'll still be on the path, and you just got to keep kicking the can. As a boy raised in South Alabama, I remember those orange clay dirt roads, and we would walk down those roads, what felt like miles, probably wasn't. Every now and then we'd come across a piece of litter, maybe a Coke can or even a beer can, not mine, in that path, and we just kick it. And we just kick it for the longest time. And that's where the metaphor came from. You're just kicking the can, you're just putting it off. It's still in the pathway until it's gone and you've dealt with it. You're still going to have to deal with the consequences. So what do you want? You want all the pain now, or you want the pain continuously? Kicking the can never works. So we're looking at church autopsies, and we're learning lessons from them. And in the first episode, we talked about denial. Now we're talking about the failure to deal with church toxins. And in the next one, we're going to talk about not accepting accountability. These are three big reasons that churches close. 2 of the episodes are already done. The other one is now available for you. So come on and listen to episode number 3, which is 225, an hour number, about refusing to accept possibility. This is a fun series, even though it's about a morbid subject. It's a fun series. So thank you for being a part of Church Answers. Hey, you at YouTube, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. We love having you here. If you're on the podcasting app, give us a rating and a good review. We'd greatly appreciate that. We greatly appreciate Cheney & Associates, the accounting firm for the church. You need an accounting firm. Don't think that it's an expense. It is an investment. Contact Cheney & Associates. You can go to CheneyAssociates.com today, or you can just simply go to the link. Thank you again for being a part of the Church Answers podcast. We got one more in the series. I look forward to being with you in the last of 3 parts of Church Autopsies. See you later.